Graham now. I've been coming to this community for over 24 years. This community is the backbone of my Canadian experience, and I thank you sincerely for that. Part of my work is educating children in the natural world. When they arrive on site, well, I don't have much time to tune them in. They're there for 2 hours, if that. And I'm going to tune them into the task at hand. Kids just love being out of the classroom. And boys, can they be noisy? They let it all out. So I don't have long to quickly tune them in, to get their attention. Now, of course, 9, 10-year-olds, especially the boys, they're still very giggly. So when they arrive and they start hearing me talk, they really get the giggles. So I've got to get their attention quickly. I learned to speak Zulu as I learned to speak English as a child. And boy, the Zulus are quite a noisy bunch, and they certainly taught me how to be noisy as well. So, I'm a good competitor for these kids. What I'll do is I'll choose out the two boys that have been a little disruptive, and I'll say, "Young man, how old are you?" Oh, they look around and see them, because usually they know each other's age. And say, "Well, I'm 10 years old." "Oh, you're 10 years old?" So, I've been in Canada now 26 years. Who's more Canadian, you or me? Oh, but the whole class said, "I want to know who you are." But I've got their attention. And I quickly tell them, forget about how I talk, just listen to what I have to say. And it seems to work. I'm going to read some old Schweitzer's words. At time, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lit the flame within us. I actually can't remember if there was a person specifically who could have tuned me into the natural world. Both my father and my maternal grandmother were great gardeners, and I spent a lot of time with them. But certainly, growing up on the south coast of Knell, South Africa, was to me growing up in paradise. Subtropical climate, pineapples, bananas, guavas, tons of birds, vervet monkeys, and martin gurus. Now, to this day, I have not found out where the name comes from. Martin gurus are a fruit of a shrub that looks somewhat like celery. Its ripe red fruit stands out like Christmas lights. However, it has thorns as big as our native black hawthorn. Big one. It's almost an Adam Eve story around the forbidden fruit, because black mambas, snakes, hang out there to catch the animals, well, especially the birds that come for the fruit. So I always pick the fruit very gingerly. The point is that I was given the most wonderful opportunity as a child to grow up very close to the natural world, in a most idyllic climate. And I'll always be grateful to this. The fact that it also exposed me to people of so many different backgrounds, technological, economic, cultural, and religious, well, I'm going to leave that for another day. The point is that I came to value and respect native knowledge, their accumulative knowledge of the natural world, and I had a close relationship with people who were close to the land. I believe I came to understand at a very early age just to what extent our very existence depends and is tied to the natural world. Now, the reason I'm talking to you today has a history. It all started with a sermon Stephen did on the things that are holy in our lives. I became quite depressed as the sermon progressed. But all I could focus on all through the sermon was the holy places that for me were lost. I ended up speaking to Alison about this, and she talked me into sharing my experience and views. Stephen offered April the 22nd, Earth Day. To me, I felt very comfortable around it. And then the dilemma hit me. Just what am I going to share? Well, things slowly gelled for me. The greatest loss of the holy in my life is seeing what we, as a species, continue to do to our natural environment and our earth. I also reflected on the loss of the holy places in my own life. This painting in front of you here, I did when I first moved to Johannesburg, not long after graduating from university in Pietermaritzburg in the Knell province. I had full intentions of going to live on the wild coast of the Transkei, Nelson Mandela's homeland. It was a paradise. Well, certainly compared to the sprawling city that Johannesburg was. The wild coast was so unchanged. It looked just the same 1,000 years ago. There was no pollution. The local people lived extremely close to the land. Their whole technology was extremely primitive. Cattle were the pack and plough animals. Horses that looked more like ponies were used by seemingly quite crazy cattle guys. And the reason I say this, because I was there once when over a hill came this guy riding his pony at full gallop. And I thought he was going to ride me straight over. He slammed on brakes right in front of me and shouted in Pondo a whole lot of stuff. And I had no idea what he was saying to me. And he immediately turned around and galloped over the hill again. So whether he was telling me this was his land, I should clear out, I never came to understand just what he had to say to me. But I came to understand that these cattle guys were little Korean. The woman worked in the fields, often with their children on their back. These fields were not large. Almost a symbiotic relationship with the parkland that had this rugged southeast coast of the Transkei. Now, I'm not suggesting that our physical survival on this earth depends on us returning to that primitive existence. I do feel, though, that our psychological well-being, and especially that in developing children, that the loss of what I consider one of the most holy spheres of our existence, that of having a relationship with the natural world, can only but be detrimental to the future generations. In fact, the loss of this relationship is fast becoming the norm across Canada, and right here amongst us, even on the North Shore. I've been reading Richard Louv's book, The Last Child in the Woods, and he has highlighted a number of issues, many of which are close to my heart. Studies are showing that there is a generational break from the natural world. A British study in 2002, now that's 10 years ago, shows that kids knew card trading characters like Metapod and Wigglytuck better than they know their local beetles and otters and oak trees. Robin Moore, president of the International Association for the Child's Right to Play, and our director, and also he's the director of the Natural Learning Initiative, has looked at the shrinkage of play spaces in urban England and North America. He reports that either the indoor spaces have become more attractive, or the outdoor spaces have become less attractive, or both. Or it's a result of a combination of apprehensive parents who keep their children close to home. A school curriculum that does not allow for outdoor study. And just look at us here on the North Shore. The 3 p.m. traffic jams of parents picking up their children from school to rush them off to the next indoor activity. and then home to do homework, watch television, and play video games. These kids actually sit in their bedrooms and then text their siblings next door in the bedroom next door. I keep trying to place Richard Louv's ideas onto the average North Shore kid. Does his reasoning gel with North Shore children? Our children reflect do they reflect the average Vancouver kid? Well, I would say that we are certainly looking at the average Canadian kid right across the country. Yet our children and grandchildren are so fortunate here on the North Shore. The opportunities are there, generally, for those that take advantage of our amazing wilderness right here at our doorstep. We certainly live from sea through creek, lake, mountain and sky. Only if we care to do so. Yet there are children right here amongst us that have little concept of what a forest is. Hardly believe it. Vancouver, British Columbia, and they don't know what a forest is. I've led East Vancouver elementary students through Makewood Flats, the bird sanctuary. They were quite disturbed when they had to walk through an alder forest. And this was in early spring, so they haven't sprung their leaves yet. So you could actually see the sky, and they're terrified. Their knowledge of the natural world is only seen through the screen, through their television. But I find it fascinating watching the transformation in each child to a new realization, a newfound comprehension, a comfort zone from actually having a relationship with the natural world. So fleeting that moment is, that one visit to the sanctuary. When Louv says that there is growing evidence that indicates that direct exposure to nature is essential for physical and emotional health. Well, I said, hell, I could have told him that. This is something I hold very strongly to myself. Now, I'm not being judgmental in any of the reactions of Louv's observations, and I really do believe that the majority of parents worldwide do their best for their children within their means. But I am deeply concerned for children, though, and for future generations of humanity living in congested cities. When I see the modernization and industrialization of China is quite beyond my everyday comprehension here in the North Shore. Now, this loss of the natural world, especially from the lives of children, we all have a good idea of what I'm talking about. Louv says, let's just call this phenomenon nature deficit disorder. He reports that when he spoke to numerous groups of parents and educators, the meaning of the phrase is clear. Nature deficit disorder describes the human cost of alienation from nature. Amongst these are a diminished use of the senses. So when I take children down to Makewood Flats, they are noisy. I eventually have to say, shut up, you guys. Oh, they won't look at me and they're quiet enough. I said, now use your ears. And they said, oh, there's a buzz. What's that buzz? I said, whoa, it could be a bumblebee. Oh, bumblebees, bees, those are killers, aren't they? No, this is just a bumblebee. It's just going by the bumblebee. Oh, well, it could be a hummingbird. Oh, hummingbirds. They have no idea what a hummingbird. And then, I'm usually quite fortunate, you'll hear a song sparrow sing, and it's a beautiful song. And they do, oh yeah, there's a bird sing. There are other human costs, of course. Attention difficulties. And higher rates of physical and emotional illnesses. Who says this can be detected in individuals, in families, and in whole communities. He believes that nature deficit can even change human behavior in cities, which could ultimately affect their designs. Long-standing studies show a relation between the absence or the inaccessibility of parks and open spaces with high crime rates, depression, drug addiction, and other human maladies. Certainly, there is the loss of the awe of nature, the loss of a spiritual relationship with nature. He emphasizes that by understanding nature deficit disorder, we can become more aware of how blessed our children can be, biologically, cognitively, and spiritually. And this can be achieved through a positive physical and interactive connection to nature. Indeed, he says that the new research focuses not so much on what is lost when nature fades, but on what is gained in the presence of the natural world. Richard Louv says there is a great need to educate parents about this research, to awaken and inspire the parents, and parents' pleasure with nature as the necessary context for continued nature experiences for their children. Such knowledge may inspire us to choose a different path, one that leads to a nature-child reunion, one that, I believe, leads to an abundance of confidence and spiritual growth in each child, and the whole planet gains. There's a presumption in this, though, that just has to be clarified. To have a relationship with the natural world, there has to be some left. We must ensure that there are natural paths, that there is wilderness where we can go and replenish our spiritual well-being. And I believe the spiritual well-being of the whole planet. Please read this book, The Last Child in the Woods by Richard Louv. It's a must for parents and grandparents. Have a spiritual birthday to you. Thank you.